welcome to another episode of Epic Geek Out, the only show on the internet who took 10th grade chemistry from Walter White. I'm your host, Chad.
I'm your host, Rob, and today we're going to be giving our review of Far Cry 3, the video game.
As always, you can check us out over at Twitter, at Epic Geek Out. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/epicgeekout, and also check out the website, www.epicgeekout.com. Good, you do it.
Let's get into our review of Far Cry 3. So today we're talking about Far Cry 3, the new game from Ubisoft Montreal. Basically, the storyline of this game, it's kind of saying it's not like a continuance of Far Cry 2, obviously. The storyline kind of sets off on new events of a young man, I guess, I don't know how old he is. I don't know if that's really been established.
I'd say like early 20s?
Yeah, like college-y age, partying with his friends, and kind of gets captured by these human traffickers and has to escape. His brother is killed in the first sequence and kind of has to, rescue his friends from
the remaining
friends from this bad group of this gang member in the tropics. So kind of open world game, and very interesting. I think art style, because we're used to these like military shooters and so grungy. I feel like this is like a really bright game. You're in
the tropical,
tropical forest. I mean, and it's really interesting. A lot of stuff to do in this game. We did not get to actually play the multiplayer because we did rent the game, and there's a code-based thing for playing that. But we can speak to the rest of it, and I kind of have some details about multiplayer, so we can kind of highlight that for you. But
yeah.
So what'd you think?
So the game starts out in this sequence of events where it does this kind of like clip montage scene from like, a film or like, a video that someone put on their phone. And it starts out like a really bad movie, like a movie that like would be on...
Like a B horror flick.
Yeah, like exactly. And then you get caught up and then you start the actual gameplay of it. But even though, it started out like a bad movie, like for a video game, I was kind of like wrapped up into it. Even though I was kind of like, wow, these characters are really douchey.
Yeah.
I do not like these people at all. So then, once you finally can control your character, you're in this like bamboo cell with your brother, and the tutorial of how to play this game I thought was well done. It brought the tension up pretty well for a tutorial.
Except you're a giant pussy.
Yeah, you stink.
I was like, man, how am I gonna root for this?
Yeah, and then your brother is like all like crazy, but So then that happens. You get rescued by this other tribe who are trying to combat, the bad guys. So they have this parallel of good versus bad. So you're trying. There's so much stuff to do in this game. It was actually really overwhelming at first for someone who hasn't played any of the other Far Cry games. I didn't really expect that it had so many like collect these plants, skin this animal, kill this person with a knife, kind of mission type stuff. And as you progressed throughout and became a warrior, your tattoo grew, which I thought was an interesting concept of how, you survived. And you were kind of the hope of this tribe since you were able to escape and survive, an army coming after you and whatnot. So I enjoyed my time with this game. It's not a game that I'm going to seek out to really play. It was really an interesting open world shooter with all the kind of stuff to do, with the fact that it still was a first person shooter opposed to Grand Theft Auto where it's third person mentality. A lot of stuff to do. I did like some of the characters that were being introduced as I got through the game. You'd have to go and fix these radio towers, which opened up the map, which I thought was a
kind
really
of like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, which was
cool,
creative idea of way to set the map open. The vehicles I found really jarring, and I think I think that's unique to Far Cry, and I'm sure people love it. But when I was driving them, I was all over the place, and like you can switch your camera so you're looking out left, which I'm sure would be important in some areas. But I was just like hitting that by accident, and not the best driver. I hit a couple glitches really early in the game where like I hit someone with the car and then they got kind of stuck and everything was like shaky. The gunplay wasn't my favorite. It was cool how you could target the opponents with the camera you had, and they tell you what kind of opponent they were, so you can map out how you were going to track them and whatnot. Just not really my type of game. I enjoy my time with it, but there's no desire to be like, oh, let's ask for this for Christmas so I can, skin some more boars and make some backpacks and things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting game. I think you have to really embrace that tribe kind of aesthetic, because that's pretty much in the entire game on both sides. I think that the villains were pretty strong. The villain characters were very interesting, and I think that there was pretty.
The
graphics
of the dude
of
from
them.
Borderlands, like
a little bit.
The first game, like the cover. I mean, it just
I think a little bit.
The wiriness of them.
Yeah, but I think like the voice acting was pretty good, and overall that was interesting. But yeah, you're right. There's a ton to do in this game, like so much. I think that alone is worth the money if you're interested in this game.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's a full $60 experience. And while we didn't get to play the multiplayer, I've heard good things. It's kind of your standard, first-person shooter multiplayer. I heard that the co-op, though, is kind of weaker because it's not the game, but with co-op, it's the game, but like truncated sessions or truncated sections with like, very like it's not as open worldy as the regular game is. But there's tons to do. Open world is awesome, and it's kind of a cool like jungle open world. That's not something that we really get to experience very often in this. I think that the RPG elements of like you're talking about the tattoos and the leveling up is cool, but I really kind of think it's unnecessary because you can kind of open everything. You kind of unlock every skill. You don't really need to choose a tree to go for. I mean, you choose a tree specialization to go for, but you get so many points and stuff. Also, the loot that you get isn't really interesting. It's kind of just for money to buy other stuff that you really want. You don't really get any cool like guns that you get to use. I mean, you can pick up guns, but it's nothing like, oh, this gun is a drop that was awesome that I kind of like Borderlands has a really cool loot system. It's not.
And
like
I thought it was a bit tedious at times too. And this might have changed towards more of getting into the game. But for every person you had to go to them to loot them, and you get $12. I mean, and I was like, well, I guess this money is going to be important.
Was, and I was really irritated with that.
And then like the chest, like you'd go to the chest once, and you should. I don't know. I wish there was an automatic loot system or something, because like you'd kill two guys and it would take so much time just to actually get that and whatnot. So I agree with you in that aspect.
Yeah, and what I thought was really cool is they set up this really awesome premise of kind of approach, like there's camps of these bad guys and you can kind of approach them in different ways, but I think that really the correct way to approach every situation was stealth. And while you could make your own decisions, and they kind of, I guess, promote that in the game, but really the best way to do it is obviously to be stealthy and kind of sneak up and take them out one by one. So while it seemed to have the illusion of multiple options, I think that it really didn't when it came down to it, because you really just want to go in there and do the stealth aspect, which is just pretty fun.
The one thing I will say is they did have fast travel options to get, when you unlock the new camp, that you could just do that. So that was cool because, you'd be traveling and you'd, every time you're on the road, a group of the bad guys would come out, and and that got old after a little bit. So the fast travel option was really cool to have. And then at the radio towers, you didn't have to go down the awful steps that you had to climb up. You could zip wire down and different things like that.
Yeah, ziplining was cool.
Ziplining was cool. The hang gliding I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, hang gliding's cool.
Stuff like that.
And I did like saying what I just said. There is like a couple cool spots where you can like unleash tigers out of their cages and it like attacks them, or do different stuff like that. So that was kind of a new, creative way. But I think overall, I'll agree with you that it's not a game I'm going to seek out, but I would say that I'm pleasantly surprised by this because it wasn't on my radar necessarily. And it kind of, it's the last of our fall releases, approaching the holidays now. So if you're looking for something that's kind of open worldy, but you're not really into Assassin's Creed, I think this is a good alternative for you. I mean, if you're not looking
if you're looking for an open world first person shooter.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
I can't think of really any others that are on the market right now, like as expansive as this.
Right.
So I mean, if you're looking for that niche genre, you certainly have to, check this out.
Yeah, so check it out, Far Cry 3. It came out like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so it should be available,
at your local stores.
So another episode has come to an end, but before we let you go, we want to give our thanks for some geek stuff that's going on right now. So Rob, what's your thanks?
I am thankful for the fact that, you know, it's the holiday season coming around, and there's no need for anyone to own a recipe book anymore. For those of you who are not aware, there are great websites like allrecipes.com, or, you know, just type into Google if you have a need for any kind of recipe. Tonight, I wanted to make chicken cutlet, so I looked into Google, found this amazing recipe, made in 20 minutes, and it was fantastic. So for all you chefs, you want to be chefs out there, I say check out the internet and find something good to make your family, your loved ones this holiday season.
Cool. So I'm going to thank a movie that's completely unrelated to food, but it actually is about the lack of food while you're stuck in a phone booth. There's a movie called Phone Booth that I really enjoy. It's a one-room thriller, I guess, ish, but there's like a little bit more other scenes where it's not really in one room. But it's a really cool film. Colin Farrell's in it.
I didn't know that's what it was about, the lack of food. He was just hungry the whole time.
Yeah, no, that's not really what it's about. But he doesn't have any food while he's in there.
That's true.
Colin Farrell and the voice of Kiefer Sutherland, and Forrest Whitaker also. Anyone else that I'm missing? Someone else? Katie Holmes.
Yeah.
Oddly. And basically, Colin Farrell's stuck in a phone booth with a sniper with his hand on a trigger, he can't leave. He's on the phone with him in the phone booth because he's kind of like a bad person. He's like I guess like a talent scout, but he's like cheating on his wife and all this stuff. But it's a really interesting psychological movie, and I always think that those kind of movies are really interesting. Isn't that one of our friends' favorite genres?
It is. Moth, if you're watching, that's for you.
Yeah, he likes the one room, like the burieds and
his favorite type of movie is one room thriller, which is
there's not many.
Odd,
but it's really interesting and enjoyable, and I just caught it the other day on TV, so you know I want to get
check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a decent flick.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week because it's Christmas time.
Woo, Christmas!
Happy holidays to everybody.
Love it.
Thanks for watching this episode, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.